Okay, let's go on to the next step. Very first step was just kind of getting started, talking about getting this foam board ready to go. We have our wax paper on here, nice and smooth. And now we're ready to start working on the kit. Before we do that, this is the template for your Delta Dart plane, okay? Now, you're noticing the text on here is a mirror image. And no, that is not the camera playing a trick on you. It is mirror image. And I'm going to flip it over in a second and show you how this works. But I want to show you the front side first. If you noticed all along here, this bottom piece here and all these other pieces, they kind of look like pieces of wood, right? Well, that's exactly what they're supposed to look like. They're supposed to look like wood because that is where you are going to be placing the wood that's in the kit. And this is on a 1-to-1 scale. In other words, this template is exactly the size of the wood in the glider. Let me show you what I mean. So opening up the kit, this is an extra template I had. Opening up the kit here. Your kit has a template in it. It has an instruction booklet in it, which you really should not rely on. You should rely on me, because this is like trying to build an airplane with IKEA instructions. Doesn't really tell you everything you need to know. Trust me, I'm a little bit better than this book, okay? So, but here's the template we were just talking about, and the rest of the materials are in here. They call this the motor stick. It's actually the fuselage of the plane. It's the main body of the plane. Here are the balsa wood pieces. There are 10 of them, okay? And only 10, and there is enough material to build your Delta Dart out of this material if you use your materials wisely. If you just use them willy-nilly and kind of not efficient with how you're using it, you might run out of wood and you wouldn't be able to finish your project. We'll talk more about that soon. And then the propeller and the rubber band, not going to need that for quite a while, okay? So I'm going to put the instruction booklet, rubber band, propeller back in the bag. It's really important when you're working on projects, and I know you all hate to hear this, but keeping yourself organized, keeping yourself neat. How many times have you been putting something together and you let the parts kind of get away from you, and then you go looking for that part, and gosh, you know, you spend more time looking for the part than it does actually building, all right? So I was talking about this template, how the wood pieces are drawn on a 1-to-1 scale here. So notice at the bottom where this motor stick is what they call it. That name really annoys me, but that's my problem. It is exactly the size of this drawing, okay? And you're going to lay it down exactly, let me try to get my hand out of the way here, exactly where it appears on this paper. Exactly, carefully, precision, deliberate. These are all words that you should pay attention to, okay? It's going to go right there on here, okay? These other pieces of balsa wood, once we start building them, are going to go right here on these pieces on the template where you see a drawing of a piece of balsa wood, okay? So it's very, very important that you place everything exactly on this template. This is a 1 scale, in other words, 1 scale drawing. And we're going to be building on this. This is really our guide to everything, okay? Now, just like, let me tip my camera down so you can see what I'm doing down here. Just like the wax paper, we have to get this nice and flat on this project board, okay? Now, it was folded up. I had to fold it up to get it in this plastic bag. I tried not to crease it, but it was folded. So what you want to do is get that fold out of there. And here's a little trick. Right on where the fold is, I want you to rub your fingers back and forth. pressing down while you do it, till you can feel a little bit of heat, a little bit of friction. Rub it back and forth. What's happening is you're putting pressure and friction, and it'll help get rid of that fold a little better than it was, okay? Now, again, we're going to put this on here. It's got to be perfectly flat. But before we do that, there's a little cut that you have to make in here. I'm going to show it to you very carefully. You see that line right there? Let me point to it. A, B, A, B. And if you look at it on your template, there's a little dashed line, going from A to B. You need to cut this paper on that line. Only that line. Don't cut way up here. Just cut right on that little line right there. Okay? I'm going to do that. I'm just going to take my scissors, and just where the AB is, nowhere else, I'm going to make a small little cut. That's it. Done. That's it. I just cut where the AB was. Didn't cut through the A. I stopped at the A. Okay. It's just the first cut that we're going to make on there. Now, we need to get this template on this foam board, and it needs to be very, very flat, 100% wrinkle free. But we're going to flip it over. Now, here's something kind of cool. All this lettering on here that is mirror image. The reason it's mirror image is because when you flip it over, you can read it properly. You can actually read it. It says, read the instructions. Tail, wing goes here. Rudder, okay? It also has Spanish on here as well. All right? So, just like the wax paper, make sure it's nice and wrinkle-free. Tape down one edge, and then take your hand like this and smooth it out. Don't try to tape all the corners and hope that it's going to be wrinkled. That doesn't work. Smooth it out with your hand and tape the other end. I'm holding it so it doesn't move on me. Okay, that's pretty nice and smooth. A couple other small pieces. And when I say small pieces of tape, this is one thing through the years that it's always been kind of funny. I tell students to get a small piece of tape, I mean like that, right? And to hand me a piece of tape like that, you know, like 4 or 5 inches long. Really, just a little small piece of tape, okay? A little small piece of tape, all right? Let me scoot this up here a little bit. There we go. All right, there we go. And I'm gonna put just a couple on the top, small pieces, and a couple on the bottom, because we don't want this thing to move around at all, okay? Now, we're gonna glue our first piece of wood on here, all right? And what this video is gonna take us up through is getting this motor stick or fuselage on here and these tail pieces. Because see, the way this is gonna work is once I glue these pieces on here, the paper itself, this paper is going to be the skin of your wings. That's what makes this plane fly so well, is instead of a big solid piece of balsa for the wing, it's just a really lightweight balsa frame with a skin over it. That's how real airplanes are built. One of the vocabulary words, you remember, was airframe. Well, the airframe is the balsa wood. That's the frame of the plane, the structure. The outer part of the airplane, they literally call it the skin. It is stretched out so it's very thin and very lightweight. So it's exactly the way a real plane is built. Now, if you notice, and you can see it through here too, just the tail end of this fuselage has got these little X marks in it. That's where they want the glue, and that's the only place they want the glue. So get your pencil if you haven't already gotten one. And remember, at any point in the video, if I say you need a pencil, you need this or you need that, and you don't have it, just pause the video. Go get what you need, okay? So I'm just laying it right on here, and I'm putting a mark. And that mark is right on the AB line that we cut before. And that little pencil mark I just made is I'm only going to put glue on this piece of balsa up to that mark. And then I'm going to put the stick, I'm going to put the piece right lined up absolutely perfectly. And I'm going to press down a little bit, put some pressure on it, and that's it. It's stuck to that paper. All right. Now, I'm going to get the glue out. Told you I'd talk about this a little bit later. The glue and the sandpaper. All right. This glue, it's actually quite a bit of glue, and you're going to be using very small amounts of glue on this project. You don't want to use a lot, because if you use a lot, it's going to soak through the paper. It's also going to add a lot of weight to your plane. So you're using small amounts of glue. All right. Very small. All right. Takes that autofocus a second to change. Now, on this glue bottle, very important, you just turn it to the left, lefty-loosey, and it will start squirting out glue when you squeeze it, okay? See? All right. Now, make sure whenever you are done with this glue, you're not going to use it within the next minute or two. Close it up. That is so important, I can't tell you. Keep this thing closed when you're not using it, righty-tighty. Because if you leave it open like that, see it's open right now? If you leave it open and leave it like that for a while, all of the glue in the tip of this dispenser will dry. And then the dispenser will not work anymore. And you want this dispenser to work because it's really great for dabbing glue on to our design. So always, always close that thing when you're not using it. Even if only for a few minutes, keep it closed. This is one thing I don't think I told you to get. It's just a paper towel, and sometimes it helps if it's a little bit damp. You're going to get a little bit of glue on your hands. And this is just, it's water-soluble glue. To wipe it off, a rag, paper towel, something like that. Now, here's our main fuselage. Look and make sure you know where it's going to go. We do not put the glue on the paper. No, no, no. We put the glue on this balsa stick. Going to open this guy up a little bit. And look how little we're going to put on here. We're just going to dab such a small amount on. That's it. I mean, that is it. And that might even be too much. And then we're going to smooth it out. You just want a do not glob it. I know somebody out there is at this very moment globbing their glue because they're saying more glue is better. It's not. See what a thin coating of glue that is. You can barely even see it. I'm going to set it down exactly on this drawing where it needs to go. I'm going to check the front of it, the top, the bottom, everywhere. I'm going to make sure it is totally 100% lined up. It should come to the very end of the rudder here, and up here come almost all the way to the where the propeller is going to be. But you'll see it's drawn on there. This is exactly covering that up. And now when I put a little pressure on here, this is already stuck to that paper. That glue, because it's such a thin layer, will dry quickly and it will not move around after just a few minutes, all right? Now, we're going to get our first piece of this real little balsa. You'll notice it's wider on one side than it is on the other. So it's meant to lay down flat, okay? So I'm going to line it up on the piece there. I'm going to make a mark, cut it, and glue it. But I want you guys to do things a little bit better than other people do, all right? Where this balsa wood, and this is going to be hard to see, so I have some bigger wood where I can demonstrate it better. Where this balsa wood makes contact with the fuselage, it just touches it in one very teeny little space. All right? Imagine, here's some bigger sticks where it's easier to demonstrate. If both of the ends of this wood are cut just flat, okay? Just like that. And one piece of wood touches the other. Notice that this piece of wood only touches the other piece of wood in a very small space. That is not a strong bond. However, if I cut this piece of wood at an angle, notice how much wood is touching the other piece of wood. That is a very strong bond. This is not that teeny little edge. This is. This is called a beveled cut. All right? Now, we're not using this for the plane. That was for demonstration. So, when I lay this piece of balsa wood down, and I'm going to try to do it upside down, I'm going to lay it down where it's supposed to go. But I'm going to overlap the fuselage just a little bit. And wonder if I can get this camera even better than it is right now. Or maybe I can just move up. Okay, maybe that's better. So it's lined up on the drawing really well. And I am going to make a mark on the little piece of balsa right where the fuselage and the balsa, small balsa meet. See that? Little mark there. And that's where I'm going to cut it. Now I'm just going to use scissors. Scissors work very well on this really thin balsa. Also, they're very, very safe. I'm going to cut it right on that diagonal line I just drew. And the one thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to use my sandpaper a little bit. And I want this cut to be super smooth. And I'm just going to gently there we go. Now, when these two pieces of wood touch, you can see they have a perfect fit. All right? So it's lined up with the drawing. I beveled the one edge. And now I've got to put a mark up at the other end. Well, if you look at the other end, you'll see where the end of the piece of wood is. And I'm going to put a mark there. Now, always cut the wood a little bit too long. So I'm going to cut and just leave the mark there. Now we have this little scrap. Do not throw this away. You're going to use it to the very next piece. And I'm going to do what they call a dry fit. So what a dry fit means, I'm going to put it in place without any glue. And I see that it is a tad long, okay? And there are two things I could do. But the safest thing to do is to sand it down rather than cutting it. And if you just rub it back and forth, measure it again, and you might have to do this 2 or 3 times. A little bit more. See, sandpaper will remove a small amount of material at a time. Very difficult to make a mistake with sandpaper. Okay. I'm going to fit, and you can get a very, very precise fit. So there we go. That's really good. So I'm going to glue this piece of wood in place. And just like the first one, I'm going to use such a small amount of glue. I mean, just like a couple of drops. I mean, that's it. And you are going to get glue on your fingers. Just a couple of drops. And then I'm going to smooth it out. Smooth it along the whole thing. a rag here to wipe the glue off my fingers, and very carefully and precisely put this in place. And it will move around only for a few seconds. And now I'm pressing that down to the paper. That's it. Notice I do not have any glue oozing out and squirting out all over the place. That's because I'm using a small amount of glue. Don't want a whole lot. Now this other little piece that was left over from my first cut, I can use over here. Now this is just going to be a straight cut, no bevel required. And I'm just going to put a mark there, right where it says on the plan. I'm going to cut it a little bit long. In other words, I'm going to leave that line, dry fit it. And that's pretty good. Maybe sand just a teeny bit. All right. Dry fit, always dry fit before you do the glue. All right. Now I'm ready to glue this piece. Same as the last one, very small amounts of glue. I'm really trying to get the smallest possible amount. Now see, this is why you really don't want this dispenser to get dried up. Matter of fact, I'm going to close it right now, because if it gets dried up and you can't use it anymore and you've got to take the glue out of that big bottle with the top off, glue ends up everywhere. I'm spreading the glue, thin layer of glue, put it right in place. I'm going to double check it's right on the line. Boom. Press it down. That's good to go. So we've got the fuselage and our rudder ready to go. Now one thing I like to do with this design is I want you to put a drop, I mean a drop. You got to learn how to just barely squeeze this bottle, like squeeze it like it's a, I don't know, just like a grape, you know, that you don't want the grape to pop, and put just a dab of glue. And right here at this joint too, a dab of glue. And I don't mean joint in the contemporary version of that meaning of that word. I mean joint as in when two things come together. Smallest amount of glue. Really, really small amount of glue. Oops. I'm closing my glue bottle, wiping off the tip. That's another good thing to do. Your glue bottle should look like that when you're done. Keep it clean like that, and it'll work for many, many projects, because you're going to need this for another project, okay? Just kind of smoothing this out a little bit. That looks great. This is a good time to stop. Sometimes we get anxious and we want to keep on going. But I have found that sometimes it's a really good time to stop, because this glue is set up pretty good, but I want it to be 100% dry, because I'm going to be working on these big wings up here. And once I get started working on these wings, I don't want to be bumping into this thing that I just built. I'm going to leave this alone and let it dry. You could just let it dry for about 15, 20 minutes or so, 30 minutes, plenty, and then start working again. But don't just stop for right now. Just resist the urge to keep going. And next we're going to come back and we're going to start on the wings, okay? But fuselage, rudder, ready to go. Leave it alone, let it dry, okay? And that's it for this segment, okay? See you in the next segment.